Time now for a look at the latest press here in France. And Didier Laurent joins me. And you're looking at the latest scandal for French footballer Karim Benzema.
That's right. More problems. That's what Libération is saying on its front page this morning. The French footballer Karim Benzema is involved in yet another scandal. Libé actually broke this story. Now, it dates back to September 2015, so last year, when an investigation was opened into money laundering involving drug trafficking. Benzema was interrogated as a potential witness 2 months ago as part of this investigation. Now, the story is this. In September 2014, so a year before that, the Real Madrid star invested in a company called BH Events, which then purchased some commercial property in a very chic part of Paris for a very low price. So investigators believe that there was some sort of shady deal under the table that took place. Now, neither Benzema nor his lawyer have actually commented on this, but members of his entourage say that he was a victim. He was duped and actually lost a lot of money himself.
Okay, let's move on to an ongoing saga here in France. That's the debate on citizenship, and the French Senate has voted crucially yesterday.
That's right. It's really the story that keeps on giving. Now, the French Senate voted. It was their turn to vote on Thursday on an article of this bill. Now, it's worth remembering that the French Senate is led mainly by the right-leaning parties, as a majority of them. Now, according to Le Monde, they voted in favor of the citizenship stripping bill to apply to all French citizens and not just those with dual nationalities. Now, to remind you about that whole debate, the idea was that this measure should apply to those with dual nationality, those who are French and something else who have been convicted of terror attacks. Now, the Senate has voted that it should be generalized across the board. The problem is it goes against what the National Assembly voted on, which means that in order for a bill in France to actually become a law, it has to be approved unanimously by both the National Assembly and the Senate. So Le Monde says basically this proposal will never see the light of day.
Okay, let's move on to a story we've been covering a lot here on France 24, and that's the backlash to Manuel Valls' plans to change the employment laws here in France. And on Thursday, the protests even turned violent.
That's right. The battle of the wills. Now, you see that la guerre des nerfs, the battle of the wills continue. That's what Le Parisien, that's a rough translation of Le Parisien's headline this morning, with, of course, a picture of those angry protesters. In fact, up to 150,000 of them took part in Thursday's demonstrations across France in opposition to the government's labor reforms. And according to Le Parisien, they're showing no signs of slowing down. In fact, there are 2 more protests planned before the end of this month. This despite the fact that the turnout in recent months has been much smaller, and the students in particular are opposed to the government plans to make hiring and firing easier, because they say that it jeopardizes their future job security, which is already in peril. So that's definitely a story to continue looking out for.
Absolutely. Let's move on to L'Opinion now, which has taken a swing at the French economy minister, Emmanuel Macron.
Emmanuel Macron, like you said, the French economy minister, he's somewhat of a maverick minister, really. He's also a media darling, or at least he's become one since he was elected. He's on the front page of L'Opinion, a right-wing publication. He's dynamic, he's young, he was a former investment banker, capable of pandering to the right as well as the left. But it seems that he's nothing more than a mediatized phenomenon. I quote there from L'Opinion.
We should just point out that it's actually him tied to the tree there.
That's right. I'll get to that cartoon. And if you see in the background, that's Manuel Valls on the right, and that's François Hollande. But I'll get to that in a second. Basically, this headline, Comment Macron se banalise, basically, he's getting ordinary. That sort of shine that was on him in the beginning is wearing off. And one of the reasons for that is because he's actually ruffling a lot of feathers within the Socialist Party, perhaps out of jealousy. According to L'Opinion, Macron has suffered a few setbacks in recent times regarding those labor reforms. And L'Opinion says that there are those in the Socialist Party who actually secretly thrilled to see this, quote, young and brilliant colleague falter and stumble. And now to that cartoon there, you see he's really, that's really in relation to Manuel Valls, who believes that Macron is actually on a self-promotion campaign, one in which he's sort of playing both sides in, quote, a battleground under fire. And there you see that great cartoon of Macron tied up, while Hollande and Valls march on to the end of their 5-year term.
Very Asterix, of course.
Yes, Asterix, Obelix.
And also, this Friday, La Croix is leading with a completely different story.
Yeah, it's not Benzema, it's not the labor reforms, it's not protest, it's not Macron, but it's the weather. A year without winter, that's the front page. That was on the front page of La Croix.
Still feels quite cold here in Paris. I mean, in a few recent weeks.
It does feel cold, but actually, according to La Croix, which is a Catholic paper, but I guess in this case it doesn't really matter. They say that France has experienced its mildest winter in a century, and apparently that goes for all over the world, the United States, Russia, and the rest of Europe. In fact, February was one of the warmest months globally, and this is it's quite worrying news just a week before spring kicks in. Now, the upside of this, of course, is there are fewer people getting sick, and there are few people suffering from what we call the winter blues. But I guess the downside is there are serious repercussions to the ecosystem around the world.
I can't wait for some more clement weather where we can have a drink on terrace. Thank you very much, Didika, for that spin through the French press this morning.